Your pike press to handstand can look like this or like this. Today, I'm going to explain to you in detail what is the technical approach that these two athletes take during their workouts to make sure that their pike press doesn't just make it up, but also looks effortless. We're going to separate the pike press into three essential parts. This is going to allow you to truly analyze the mechanics needed to succeed in every one of these parts. Plus, you're going to be able to determine what are your own very personal weak spots and limiting points to make sure your training is as effective as it can possibly be. For every single one of these parts, we're going to look at the mechanics, the precise anatomy, which muscles are working, and of course, what kind of exercises that you can do at your current level to improve that particular aspect of the pike press to handstand. At the end of this video, we're going to wrap it all up by putting everything into a comprehensive training routine to see what are your options and how you can schedule your workouts. Of course, if you want to succeed with your pike press to handstand, you should be able to hold your freestanding handstand. But I recommend to everyone to start training for the pike press to handstand as early as possible. The strength, coordination, and flexibility gains made during the pike press to handstand training are going to significantly help you on your journey towards the freestanding handstand. And by the time you have your freestanding handstand, you're already going to be able to pike press to handstand. Every single press to handstand begins with a shoulder lean. We have to get the weight from the feet into the hands. Technically speaking, this part of the press to handstand is probably the most straightforward. All you have to do is lean into your hands and push your index fingers into the floor. Now, one technical detail that's often overlooked is that rounding your upper back is going to significantly help you transferring weight into your hands. Have a look at this. If you're leaning towards the front with a straight back, you have to lean significantly further compared to leaning with a rounded back. Also important to mention here right away, hamstring flexibility is going to be key. The closer that you can get your feet towards your hands, the less you have to lean your shoulders, and the easier it's going to be to get your feet off the ground. Your main working parts are obviously going to be your shoulders here. They have to resist into flexion, they have to elevate, and they have to stay protracted. There's a variety of exercises that I would recommend for you to train to get good at this takeoff moment at the press to handstand. The first thing that I want you to learn is how to actually round your back efficiently. A great exercise for that is the rounded crunch exercise, where you basically start with your armpits on the knees, chin on the chest, and you roll down onto your back as slow as possible, truly feeling every single vertebrae of your back connecting with the floor one at a time. Additionally, we have to build raw shoulder strength. For that you practice pike push-ups, military presses with the weights, and shoulder shrugs. We can put all of this together by practicing, for example, press leans with scapular elevations, the walking dead exercise, before eventually practicing press takeoffs. At this point, you're already at part 2 of the pike press to handstand, the compression period. This is technically and physically the most difficult part of the pike press to handstand, or really of any press to handstand, and is often overlooked. We want to unroll the back, one vertebrae at a time, starting at the shoulders at the upper back. Push everything open, and at the very end, engage your lower back, pulling the hips into an anterior pelvic tilt, ideally with your glutes sticking out the other side of your back. A prerequisite for this is hamstring mobility and lower back mobility. But crucial is also back extension strength and coordination. Another thing that cannot be neglected here is compression strength. You see, your feet and your shoulders are directly related. If your feet fly out behind you, your shoulders have to come out exactly the same distance on the other side, as the two of them always have to balance each other out. Stay compressed, keeping the feet close to your wrists is going to allow you to keep your shoulders much closer to your center as well, making it more gentle on your wrists, more gentle on your shoulders, and generally physically significantly less demanding. Focusing on strength and coordination work here is going to be great, but at the end of the day, you have to remember that you're never going to be able to pull into 100% of your available range when you're fighting gravity on your hands. Which means that if you're just flexible enough to theoretically make this work, there's no chance in the world that this is actually going to go the way you plan it. You need a bit of a reserve. It's easy to push into 80% of your flexibility. It's close to impossible to push to 95 or even 98%. So your best approach here is going to be to improve your hamstring and lower back mobility first. Whilst you do this, you already start investing into compression strength, sitting leg lifts, leg raises, all of this kind of stuff. At the same time, you're going to start focusing on the lower back coordination that I've been talking about. This concept of pulling the hips up. Great exercises for that are the kneeling cat and cow with the band, as the band is going to really help you understand where you have to arch and where you have to round. Once you're good at this, we're going to go up on our forearms, elevate the feet, we're going to stabilize everything and work on small hip engagements, pulling the hips from the posterior pelvic tilt into the anterior pelvic tilt and back. Then of course you take it one step up, you go into a push-up position, you practice zombies. Here you want to make sure you first lean your shoulders towards the front and then the hips come up whilst the shoulders still lean. At this point, you have the coordination, you hopefully have the flexibility, and you've also improved your compression strength. Now we're going to take all of those concepts and combine them, put them into one exercise. Bench zombie takeoffs are great for this. Pull your hips just a little bit further into an anterior pelvic tilt so your feet leave the bench. Now really important here is I do not want your feet to leave the bench because you lift your legs up. Instead, I want you to lift your feet up because your hips are sticking out in the back in the anterior pelvic tilt whilst you force them down using your hip flexors. From here, you take off, you lower to the floor. Now we already have this whole bottom portion, part 2 and part 1 together. You can even take this one step further, and instead of just lowering down to standing, you could continue and lower all the way down to the L-sit, preparing you for the L-sit pike press to handstand. Let me know in the comments down below, by the way, what is your favorite press to handstand variation, and what are your questions towards your favorite press to handstand variation? What should the next video be about? For now, let's get back to the pike press to handstand. We just did the bench zombie lowering down to standing. Now we're going to tap the floor and press right back up onto the bench. This might be the most challenging, yet definitely one of the most beneficial pike press to handstand exercises that you can ever master. Assuming that your takeoff and compression period was good, the last part, the unrolling into the handstand, is truly a piece of cake. All you have to do now is bring your legs overhead. What's important here is that you open your hips slowly and you control the movement, because if not, your shoulders are going to flip into hyperflexion and your legs are going to come over into a hollow body position. What's important to learn here is basically to rotate the legs inside of your hips. In other words, you want to be able to move your legs without moving the hips. The tuck handstand is a great example for this. The tuck handstand allows you to pull into deep compression whilst cutting the hamstrings completely out of the equation. In this tuck handstand now, you have to engage your lower back to pull the hips into the anterior pelvic tilt. If your lower back is relaxed, your hips are going to flip in a posterior pelvic tilt, your lower back rounds, your upper back rounds, your shoulders get pushed towards the front, and you collapse. If you cannot hold a tuck handstand, chances are extremely high you're not going to be able to pike press to handstand, and you're definitely not going to be able to do a great pike press to handstand. Now that we've learned every single part one by one separately, it's now finally time to put everything together. The first exercise that you're going to do here is a slow eccentric, and you want to really focus on technique and form here. Remember, when the legs first come down, you flip your hips into the anterior pelvic tilt to create this light counterweight with your glutes. You pull your legs in as much as you can using your hip flexors, and only when your legs cannot come in any further, you begin to round your hips into the posterior pelvic tilt, mid-back, before eventually the shoulders come out towards the front and your feet are already on the floor. A natural progression from this, of course, is to grab 2 yoga blocks, so you can then tap the floor, press back up, tap the floor lower, press back up, before eventually you do the takeoff to the pike press to handstand, and then of course the pike press to handstand all the way up from the floor. Your goal through this entire journey shouldn't be just to sensitively make it up. You want to make it up as clean and as controlled as possible, because it feels so cool when you are able to separate each part of the pike press to handstand. A great strategy that truly did wonders for me was to use dynamic hamstring stretches during the warm-up, and then do static stretches and especially TNF stretches before every single pike press attempt. Those stretches are going to help you increase your mind-muscle connection, and with that, you're going to be able to utilize your accessible range more effectively for a short period of time. Now, if you want to make real progress for your pike press to handstand, consistency is key as always. When training for the pike press, I see 2 ways how you can split your workouts to make the most out of every single week, assuring frequency for growth and intensity, whilst allowing you adequate time for recovery. Option number 1, a bit more of a beginner-friendly option, would take the pike press training and separate it in 2 separate workouts. Workout 1 is going to focus on anything compression and lower back coordination related. You're going to stretch your hamstrings, you're going to do your compression training, and your lower back technique coordination training, such as the sitting cat and cow and all of these hip engagements in the forearm stand. Workout number 2 focuses on anything that's shoulder strength. Anything weight bearing on your wrists, you put into that workout. Your regular handstand training, your handstand push-up training, and your shoulder strength training all goes into a separate workout. Like this, you can devote a complete training session onto one separate part of the pike press to handstand. Keep your workouts shorter, and with this, a little bit easier. You might spend 2 months with this split, you might only spend 2 weeks here or 2 days, or you might not do this at all. This really depends on your current pike press to handstand level and experience. Once you get a little bit more familiar with the exercises, with the work volume, with the intensity, you move on to split option number 2, the more advanced option. Here, 3 times a week, you're going to do a complete pike press workout. Those workouts are a little bit longer and more intense. They're going to last about 90 minutes. You're going to warm up, train your handstands, do your hamstring stretches, your technical press work, your press conditioning, and your compression work. They're very comprehensive sessions. But that's also what's so cool about the Pike Press to handstand, is that it's gonna motivate you to move forward, to advance in so many different fields that you're already training in. Additionally to this, 2 or 3 times a week, you're gonna do your supplementary session. By now you know what you're lacking in your Pike Press to handstand. Usually it's either hamstring mobility or shoulder strength. These 2 extra sessions could be pure stretching and conditioning workouts. If you don't enjoy stretching, maybe we can find a goal that you actually enjoy working towards too, like for example the front split, which is going to keep you fueled to keep stretching your hamstrings. Or if your shoulders are not strong enough, maybe learning advanced freestanding handstands, leg choreographies, or the handstand push-up is going to be a great way to drag you along and just kind of push through this part of training that you don't enjoy as much. Because let's be honest, whatever we're not as good at, we usually don't like doing as much, so we neglect it. Finding a goal that motivates you is absolutely key here. If you want to take your Pike Press training to the next level and you want to take all the guesswork and the hard thinking out of the equation, then follow the link down below. You can work your way through a questionnaire, answer a couple in-depth questions, and I'm going to create a customized Pike Press workout that I'm going to send right into your inbox for free. Or if you truly want to commit, you want to work hard, you want to stay dedicated, and you really want to get that Pike Press as early and as soon as possible, then have a look at my Pike Press to handstand online program, where I take you through all the different stages. We work on each part of the Pike Press separately before we put it then back together, utilizing customized workouts, customized handstand workouts, and of course, stretching and conditioning sessions. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't looked at those 2 videos yet, I will do so now. Get to work.